Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and today we're going to make what are the two prettiest cards I have ever made. Not just the prettiest emergency cards, and they are emergency cards, which I'm very excited about, but the prettiest cards ever. I am using the Peruvian lily from Altenew. It's part of their Craft a Flower series, and all of their Craft a Flower dies are excellent. This is an older one. The newer ones have like a little keyhole to help you line up all of the pieces and layers. But in the older ones where they don't have that, they were still looking for ways to make these pretty simple to put together. So my first three layers, I have a black, a light pink, and a medium pink. The bottom of the flower is identical on all three layers, and then at least two of the petals extend all the way to the edge. So it's not any different than lining up three matching pieces of cardstock or three matching die cuts. This fourth layer with the darker pink is going to match the bottoms identically. So again, I've got 4 layers on here that I had no trouble lining up or figuring out where they went. When I go to add the next layer, I've cut it out of yellow, and you guys, I did not get fancy. I am just making this using the same colors that were on the packaging, okay? And that's generally what I do the first time I make one. And then after that, I go rogue. Any coordinating or similar colors of cardstock work beautifully for this, or you can ink blend them if you don't have a bunch of different colors of cardstock. For these yellow pieces, I'm just lining them up so that the black shows through the holes. And it's really obvious when you go to lay it down on there. There's no guessing. You know exactly where it goes. Here I have my darkest pink. This piece layers right on top of the orange piece. So I think this is the stamen. Correct me if you know more about flowers than I do, which you probably all know more about flowers than I do, but if I'm wrong. And then we are going to line this one up. On that dark pink piece, there is a very straight edge that looks out of place. I am lining it up right on the left-hand side of that very straight edge. I spent some time sort of studying the packaging, which has a diagram of how to put it together in each of the steps. And this seemed to be a pretty good fit. And that was really easy to show you, okay? Then this last light pink piece is going to line up right underneath the yellow piece on the left. Okay, and I kind of center it in there. I made 2 of these lilies and we'll use one on each card. I am using a stiff bristled brush just to remove some of the hairs. I wait until I have the whole thing put together because then I don't have to do it as often or as much. I got this lily because it's an older one. I got it from a Cherry on Top. You can also get it direct from Altenew. I found the shipping was a little bit better at a Cherry on Top, but I'll link it any place I can find it for you, okay? The leaf goes together really quickly because all 3 layers have the same edge on that right-hand side. I think the flower in total took me about 6 minutes to put together. This is our first card, and it is a mini Slimline card. So that is a number 7 coin envelope. I'll link those below if you're interested or not sure what size envelope you need. And I have begun by cutting a piece that is 3 by 11 and scored at 6 1/4. So I have a short flap on the front and a long flap on the back. I'm using some gold mirror cardstock to create some stripes. And off camera, I've been experimenting with this scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive. This is the 2-inch width and I love it. Like, double-sided adhesive is expensive, but this was really affordable and it's just big enough that I can make a sticker out of most of the die cuts that I own. I've been so pleased. So here I'm going to make some sticker metallic stripes. I'm using the scrapbook.com slim strips. If you've been watching me lately, I've been using those a lot because it's how I'm using up my scraps. So on the emergency card kit number 8 card sketch, we made a really similar card, and to extend this short flap, we used a 2 1/8 inch square and turned it to look like a diamond to extend that flap. Well, here I'm going to use my flower to extend the flap. So I'm adding glue only on the edge that's going to overlap that flap, and I cut a little notch out at the top where the flower didn't cover all of that edge. I found it easiest to use a pencil to sort of draw my line instead of trying to trim it after I had glued it down. And then I am going to use the leaf to extend the bottom. It's going to overlap the flower slightly and the edge slightly. And I've added a little bit of thin foam. Those are from, I think, Spellbinders. It's like a 1mm foam, just enough so that it didn't look all wonky, since that flower has a lot of dimension and texture. I used a scrap 1/2-inch strip of cardstock and temporarily adhered it to the right-hand side of my card to make sure that this first strip of gold metallic cardstock was straight. Could I eyeball it? Yes, probably, but this was easier. And anymore, I've been using these strips so often that I just have a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch scrap of cardstock kind of sitting on my desk. From here, I'm very comfortable eyeballing it. They aren't very far apart. On this last one, I'm taking off just sort of part of the adhesive on the back at a time, because this stuff is really sticky. And when I say really sticky, I mean, yes, it will tear your cardstock if you try to peel it back up, but it also sticks to your fingers. That's maybe the only downside. It sticks to your fingers and is sometimes hard to get your fingers off of the adhesive. And so it gave me a place to hold on to that was easy enough to let go. I used my 2-inch circle punch to cut a circle out of some matte silver cardstock and some plain gray cardstock. Just for stability, I layered those up because I wanted to pop it up on some thin foam again. That way the dimension from those stripes isn't knocking everything kind of off kilter. I'm punching out with my 1 3/4 inch punch. You are freaking awesome. This is an emergency sentiment from kit number 6. I will link that below as well. But I'm just going to adhere it temporarily so that if I change my mind later, I absolutely can do that. I didn't put anything on the inside. I will just use a metallic pen on that black cardstock, but certainly you could cut a scrap of white cardstock to fit in there. Our second card is a box card. This is my new go-to. I am so excited about this design, especially with the use of that flower in the right-hand corner and the emergency sentiment. This is not going to take much longer than the first card, but it packs such a punch. I have a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 inch cardstock, and then this white piece is just a 1-inch scrap of heavyweight cardstock. I like that it's heavyweight because I'm using it as a ledge to make sure that my stripes go on straight. Okay, so it creates slightly more of a ledge. If you don't have heavyweight, you could layer up 2 pieces if that's easier. I have temporarily adhered the white cardstock to the bottom. Then I tucked my foil ever so slightly underneath that, and I'm going to tape my stripe glimmer plate. This is the Modern Stripes plate from Spellbinders and Simon Hurley. And I'm going to tape that in place and make sure everything is completely held down. I'll put that on my glimmer plate, heat it up, run it through, and here are my stripes. It doesn't foil perfectly, but that's because this cardstock isn't great for foiling. I don't really mind. I kind of like that slightly vintagey gold look that I get here. Because my plate wasn't long enough, I am going to add my cardstock strip again and go through that whole process again. If you don't hot foil or you don't like to hot foil, that's okay. You could use a ruler and a gold paint pen or a gold Sharpie, or you could use those same gold strips of cardstock that we used on the first card. I'm going to show you a bonus card at the end where I just used some matte silver cardstock strips to create a similar effect. So I was experimenting. I wanted to see how this would go, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. I love sort of a geometric something paired with a more organic floral shape. I am scoring at 1 inch, 5 1/4 inches, 6 1/4 inches, and 10 1/2. Please notice that the bottom of my box is up at the top of that scoreboard. Okay. I found that easier just because the last score line, otherwise you're having to score at a 1/2 inch and my fingers get in the way. When I fold everything like a mountain and fold it up into a box, I have a short flap and a long flap on that right-hand side. I want the long flap, that 1-inch flap, on the front. And then I'm going to cut a 3 1/2 inch square out of the front. You could use any size or shape that you wanted here, but 3.5 inches seems to work pretty well and give me enough stability while also showing quite a bit of what is inside the box. Then I have a piece that is 4.25 by 4.75, and I'm going to score it 1/4 inch and 4.5 inches. I am creating 2 1/4 inch flaps on this piece. I'm using a 3-inch circle from my Waffle Flower nested circle dies to cut out of the middle of this silver piece. If you're kind of new to die cutting, the Waffle Flower nested circles are a great option because you don't have to cut them apart, and they come with excellent packaging and a little like magnetic sheet in there to keep everything straight for you. I will link those below along with the pink and main squares that I used for the front of the box as well. So I am going to add this to the inside of my box, and I'm going to remove the adhesive from only one flap. I want the score line, not the edge of the piece, but the score line right in the middle of that 1-inch section that we've scored off. That's the side of our box. So I'm double checking, yes, it's in the middle, and then I will lay that adhesive onto my box. Okay, I'm folding it up. I'm checking to make sure that the top and the bottom of the box are parallel, that the silver piece lines up with them. And you can see when I tuck the lily in here, it fits beautifully. I want to add glue to my lily only where the lily is going to touch the silver cardstock. Otherwise, I'm going to accidentally smear glue onto the back of the box, and that just looks kind of messy, and I don't want that. So I've added my glue, and I'm going to line that up. I'm making sure on the right-hand side that I'm not overlapping that score line. If it overlaps, you're going to have to trim pieces off, but it does overlap the bottom. That's okay. We're going to trim it off. You don't have to, but if you want it to fit in your envelope and you want it to stand flat on display, this part's sort of important. If you have a trimmer that can handle a couple layers of cardstock, go for it. I like a craft knife for this. I just line up my ruler, that's sort of a thick ruler, and I go slowly and carefully. I'm not trying to muscle all the way through it. Just give it gentle pressure, and it's okay that it takes a handful of turns. After the first one, you're going to create a little groove, and your craft knife will stick right in there. It's not hard, but do what you're comfortable with. Then we are going to start assembling the rest of the box and folding it closed. I've added some score tape to the black flap as well. So now I have a score line on the inside here. So I'm going to fold on the score line for the silver panel. And that black flap, kind of depending on where you place the silver piece, hopefully will overlap that silver flap ever so slightly. Mine overlaps slightly at the top and not so much at the bottom. That's okay. If it doesn't overlap, that's okay too. It just means you'll have to hold both the flaps. Then I am going to fold this at the score line that is just inside of the square we cut out of the front of our box. And I'm going to press everything flat against my work surface and lay the last flap into the adhesive. You want to make sure you're putting this together while everything lays flat. That way you know it will fold flat to fit inside your envelope. I am adding a 2-inch gold circle on the inside of my box card, and it just fits beautifully. Like, I can't even tell you, I'm completely obsessed with this design. I will be making tons, and I've already made a bunch more, but I'm going to continue to make more of them because they're quick and they're easy. I think this card took, I don't know, an extra 15 minutes over the first one. And a lot of that is because I was foiling, right? If you skip the foiling, this is a 20-minute card. So you can see on the back, I will add my message with probably a gold pen or a silver pen. It folds flat into my envelope. It pops up really easily to stand on display. I hope that you will give a box card a try because they're a lot of fun and they're really not that difficult. So here are the 2 card projects that we made for today, and I have one more to show you. This one I made using a different flower, and the stripes on this one are some matte silver cardstock that I cut using those scrapbook.com slim strips. So use what you have. Give it a try. If you make one and post it to social media, tag me. I would love to see it. I am just over the moon about this card.